All right, let's dive in. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of the toughest jobs in modern manufacturing. We're going to look past the shiny finished products and get right into the nuts and bolts of how they're made, and who, exactly, is leading the charge.
So, have you ever really thought about it? What does it actually take to turn a bunch of raw metal into, say, the car you drive? It's definitely not magic. Now, it's this incredibly complex, high-stakes dance, all orchestrated by one key person.
And you know how we're going to decode all this? We're using a guide you'd probably never expect, a real-life job description. I know it sounds a little dry, but trust me, this thing is like a secret blueprint. It lays out all the insane challenges and clever strategies needed to run a factory floor today.
So we're going to call the person in this role the factory floor conductor. Because honestly, that's the perfect way to think about them. They're standing right in the middle of all these roaring machines and complicated steps. And their one job is to create harmony out of what could easily be just total chaos.
And if you're picturing some manager sitting in a quiet office, just erase that image right now. This person is on the floor, in the middle of the action. And for their entire shift, everything, and I mean everything, is their responsibility. The safety of the crew, the speed of the line, and the quality of every single part. The stakes, they couldn't be higher.
So what's their mission? It's simple and it's brutal. A relentless pursuit of perfection. In manufacturing these days, good enough just doesn't cut it. It is a constant, daily grind to be faster, better, and more precise than you were the day before.
It all really boils down to one key idea: productivity. That's the ultimate report card. It asks the big question: how good are we, really, at turning all our raw materials, machines, and people's time into an actual finished product? Improving that is the name of the game.
To track this, they use a super important metric called OEE, that's Overall Equipment Effectiveness. You can just think of it like a performance score for the whole factory. It looks at whether the machines are running, how fast they're going, and if they're making good parts. 100% is a perfect score, and our conductor is always trying to push that number up.
Now, here's where the real artistry comes in. It's a concept called line balancing. And that orchestra analogy we talked about, it is never more true than right here. See, if the welding team is working way faster than the assembly team, you get a traffic jam, a bottleneck. The conductor's job is to make sure every single section is perfectly in sync, so the whole thing flows like music.
And just check out this line, pulled straight from that job description. This really shows you the kind of pressure they're under. It's not about hitting targets for the month or the week. It's about hitting very specific, very demanding targets every single shift. The pressure is constant.
Okay, so the mission is perfection. But of course, it's not that simple, right? Our conductor has some serious adversaries they have to battle every single day. Let's call them the forces of waste, inefficiency, and risk. These are the enemies.
And the number one enemy, the ultimate villain of the factory floor? Downtime. When the machines are humming along, you're making money. But the second a critical piece of equipment breaks down, the entire symphony just grinds to a dead stop. That's why working with the maintenance team isn't just a task, it's a critical battle.
But downtime isn't the only foe. Waste is sneaky. It hides in all sorts of places. There's something called the cost of poor quality, or COPQ, which basically means every defective part costs you real money. Wasting power, using too many supplies, an unbalanced line, these are all tiny leaks our conductor has to find and plug.
And then we get to the most important number on the entire factory floor, 0. When it comes to safety, there is absolutely no room for error. The conductor's job is to enforce safety rules so strictly that 0 accidents isn't just some goal, it's the reality.
So how in the world do they fight all these battles and actually win? Well, they don't just show up with a clipboard and a good attitude. No, they come equipped with a pretty powerful toolkit of methods designed specifically for solving problems and making things better.
A huge one is root cause analysis. And honestly, it's pure detective work. When something goes wrong, you don't just fix it. You have to ask why, and then you ask why again. You keep digging until you find the real fundamental reason for the problem. You're not just patching a leak, you're fixing the pipe so it can never leak again. They also have what's known as the 7QC tools, which is basically an entire arsenal for quality control. They can use things like a cause and effect diagram, it looks like a fishbone, to map out every single possible reason for a defect. Or they might use a control chart to watch a process over time, spotting a tiny problem before it turns into a huge disaster. It's all about using data, not guesswork, to solve problems.
So after seeing the mission,
the enemies they fight, and the tools they use. What kind of person actually does this job? Let's break down the anatomy of this modern industrial leader.
The job posting makes it crystal clear. This is not a role for a rookie. You need an engineering degree, absolutely, but you also need 8 to 10 years of being in the trenches. You need that deep, hands-on knowledge of how fabrication and welding actually work, plus you have to be an expert in all the quality and safety systems.
So when you put it all together, what do you get? You get this amazing hybrid. They have to be a hands-on engineer who really understands the machines. They have to be a sharp-eyed analyst who can see the story the data is telling. And they have to be an inspiring leader who knows how to motivate their team. It's a huge, multifaceted role.
Behind every single seamless product we use, there's a ridiculously complex, high-pressure process. So the next time you see a perfectly finished car or a flawless appliance, maybe you'll think about that invisible conductor, the person on the factory floor who orchestrated the whole thing into existence. Thanks for joining me for this one.